Everybody, hello everybody. I have decided that I'm going to show you how to set up your board properly. Your bindings. See, there's my bindings. I got flow bindings. Boom. Minks. I've been riding on these bindings for my whole career, and I love them. They're awesome. Easy to get in, easy to get out, quick. I like being quick, eliminating all the extra effort. So I'm going to show you now how to set up this beauty. So as you can see, this board is a regular camber. I usually ride regular camber. It's got a little lift on this edge. It's a Sensor Plus from Nidecker, so it doesn't catch an edge so easily when you're spinning. I enjoy that actually quite a lot. Yeah, for big jumps I prefer having a stiffer board and regular camber because it nicely holds the edge and supports on the landings. So that's really important for me, riding big jumps or being more experienced in the park, I guess. So let's get to it. So let's start with this. Usually the board has here, there's little marks here and here and here and here. That's the recommended way that you're supposed to set up your board on. It's a twin tip, so it has same length of the tail as same length of the nose. So usually what I do is I put my elbow in between my bindings, and that's usually the length that I would like because I change my boards quite often, even the length sometimes, and the distance in between the ideal setup change. So usually when I put my elbow there, that's the exact distance that I want in between my bindings. So that's a first tip. I'm gonna use the recommended distance on this board. It's a 147. Sometimes I ride 149, depends on what kind of conditions. If I have big jumps, I usually use a bit bigger board as well. But 147, I found that it's quite a good length for everything. Usually they recommend that you should have it under your chin, but I found out that's way too short and the board gets softer as smaller it gets. So usually I have my board, and when I have my boots I'm a little bit higher up, so it's just below my nose. I find that being pretty ideal length for park. Another thing that you have to look at is, see, there's 3 holes here. I usually put it in this last hole to put my binding as forward as I can. How you find out that that's the right place is you set it up, you get your bindings in. When you have that down, you grab your boot and tie it up. I love this boot, it's the most comfortable boot. Nidecker Lunar. Put my boot in there, right? So how do you find out if your binding is incorrectly? If you look at the board and the binding, there has to be usually same amount of over the heels and then over the toes. You can lift the board up on my toes sticking out and my heels sticking out. So you want to make sure that your heels or toes are not sticking out too much, because then it just puts you off balance. Also, there's angles here. You cannot see it, but there's a number 15, 12. When I was younger, I thought that like more duck foot stance was cooler, or like it was the right way for me, but after a while I figured out that it's actually better to have your foot more inward. It really depends on a person. Like I stand a little bit more feet in naturally. I walk a little bit more feet in, so for me it's better to just have my foot slightly up, not too much, because I can keep my balance better. So what I found out that the ideal angles are 12 on my front foot, and then I'll do 9 on my back foot, and that I found out being the best angles for me. And then when I do powder, I sometimes even put the front foot a little bit more out so I can stand a bit better, and the back foot a little bit more in. Another nice thing, so this binding is super nice because it has this extra cushion over here, you know, this extra padding. Yeah, it's basically for heavy landings. You land heavy, your foot slides in nicely, and it's just easier. It's easier to clean up your bindings when you just have the screws on there. There's some snow that gets stuck on, and I like having no snow under my foot. Another thing that I do with my binding, with this flow binding, is I like these straps as soft as possible so they kind of nicely sit onto my foot. There's a hole here. I don't put this strap, this plastic strap in, and it makes this whole thing a little bit softer, and it sits on my foot super nicely. That's basically it. It's not very difficult, but not many people know how exactly to do it, and this is how I do it. This is how I set up my board, and as we said, look, it's like a perfect distance. My board is set and ready to go. I'll see you on the mountain.